welcome to the Hoosier Garage, and we got some parts ordered, all kinds of parts ordered. We got a lot of them in. There's a few things we're waiting on, but we have a lot of stuff to clean up and paint and make it look pretty in the meantime. So we definitely have a busy schedule. I got most of my order in from Rock Auto today, some of it yesterday, some of it today, and we have stuff like lower control arm bushings. They come in a pair. We got strut rod bushings for each side. We've got the upper ball joints, which are the screw-in type. And you notice it's got the four flat sides here and the thread. So those go on top, and then you have the oddball press-in bushings because they don't have any threads or any hex or any type of any system like that on them. So these will have to get pressed in along with these. And so basically I'll just take the lower control arms in to the alignment shop that I always have good prices on stuff, and they usually do me pretty good. So we'll get everything pressed in and we'll repaint the arms black. So everything else is just all the hardware that goes with it. Oh, and our friend Steven out in California, he really helped us out here. He had a parts van, like a 75 or 76 model. And this is the spindle that replaces the galled up one here. We can't use, or we could, but you know, let's play it safe. So this one's in great shape. We also got our emergency brake cables from him. So we got some of those and some other little oddball pieces. And we also got our proportioning valve, which is here soaking in PB Blaster. And so I'm going to try to extract all these, and that leads into our next section. And that next section requires us to tell you about the disc brake situation. If you haven't followed our channel before, we are in the midst of doing a swap on the front because we had drum brakes, all four wheels. And we went and got some brakes, spindles and everything out for the disc brake conversion. We got off like a 77 van. Pretty much the same parts you'd have on a 72 like this. But we was unfortunate I had the drum brakes, which are okay, but modern day upgrade. Right here is the proportioning valve for the said drum brakes. There's two lines that come from the master cylinder that go in, and then you have here two that go out, and that goes to the rear and your front wheels. On the proportioning valve that we got from Steven, and what is going to be standard on any kind of a disc brake situation, is you have 5 ports all the way. You have 2 for this, and you have 3 that go out to the brakes. Now you're thinking, what's the difference here? You know, what's going on? If you're not familiar with this stuff, that's where you're probably asking. Well, in this case, I even have it marked right here. This is master cylinder. But right here, I have R for rear. This line is pretty standard. It's just the rear line that goes all the way to the back to the axle, and then it tees off and goes to each brake. Well, usually on a disc brake car, you'll have one here and another one over here somewhere, and one line goes to the passenger side, one goes to the driver's side. Well, what happens here is this one goes down roughly under the frame, about where the driver would sit, and then it tees off to each wheel. So you cannot directly put the disc brake proportioning valve in place of this. The lines are in a little bit different situation. So what we have to do, and what really helps, is I checked out our lines themselves. And right here, the metal line on the back side of the frame is pretty crispy. There's a lot of pitting in it, and that could be a possibility for failure down the road. So we don't want to do that. So I thought, since we're on a T here also, and we need to hook the proportioning valve for the disc brakes up properly, what I'll probably do is just use these as a template, except for where they go to the T, they'll run together there, and I'll run them all the way up. So I'll basically make 2 brand new lines. One for this side, one for the opposite side over there. And then we'll have some fresh brake lines, we'll have fresh disc brakes, rotors, everything's new, and we should be ready to stop. Okay, so first things first is to disconnect the entire front line, and I wasn't too concerned about saving, so I went ahead and chopped it. It would not move. Line wrench wouldn't grab it. Put a little heat on it without tearing up the firewall or anything, and it just no dice. So chip, chip, snip, snip, and here it is. So this is the one that goes to the passenger side. It comes under the engine cradle, and here's the actual T with the bracket. And we're drip, drip, dripping over here, and this goes to the driver's side. This is what goes up to the firewall with a little bit of a bend on it. And actually needs to, sorry, you're off camera, come up here, and this is where we cut it. So make a rough version of this. Well, actually strike that. What I'm actually not sure if I want to do I want to keep the proportioning valve here, or do I want to extend everything down to where they would be, at least on the later models. I don't know where the disc brake models fell on a 72. If you had disc brakes, did it sit here, or is this just for drums? I don't know. It doesn't really matter too much. I would have to replace these lines here, which are just curled around here. This one here goes to that one. It's pretty obvious. So I've been debating, at least. See, here's where the T was, right here. And it's hard to see, but it's just a decision that I have to make on that proportioning valve, because you see how this one looks. You take a mental picture of that, and then you got this one here, which is soaking in our rough stuff to make it pretty. And I wouldn't have to extend the wire for the brake light if I kept it up top, so I might just try that. I gotta play with it, but that's where we're at. All right, everybody, so I got a plethora of things going on here. As I went through earlier, this is the line that carries over around the K-frame engine cradle. Goes up to the frame on the driver's side, and that goes up to the master cylinder. So I went ahead and did this piece. I decided also to make the proportioning valve for the disc set in the same place generally as the brake drum proportioning valve. I figured it'd just be a lot easier to keep it there. I can not have to extend the wires. I can keep some of this stuff a little shorter at the top. But anyways, this is the line I used this as a template, and we duplicated this line all the way around here. And instead of breaking it off at the T, I went ahead and made a bend, brought it up, and basically fashioned it to flow alongside the one that goes up in front of the firewall to the master cylinder. And then right in here, I left it length on it so that we can adapt it and then snip it and then do our flare. Same thing on this one. I haven't put a fitting on it yet, but I left enough. We can put a fitting on there. I know it needs to be right there, and therefore we'll put our fitting on and do the flare. So we got that. That's probably the biggest piece of it all. The proportioning block, I'll move you over here. This is the drum proportioning block. I have it in the vise. I've attempted to put heat on it. Use our penetrating oil. Add more heat, penetrating oil, and then use line wrenches to pop these off. We have a 3/8 and a 7/16, and the line wrenches just want to round off on there. So that's not good. I figure they're short enough, they're sweet enough, and simple enough. I will just go ahead and bend some new lines. I'll have to get some fittings for these, the correct ones that will adapt to the other proportioning valve. But I did buy some alloy line here. I used what I had of the other stuff. That was a 25-foot roll. This is a 25-foot roll. And so we'll take a couple of these, make that. The rear section that goes back to the rear brakes, that was right here. It wouldn't move either. None of this stuff would move. Heat and everything, nothing helped it. They've been on there better part of 50 years. So I went ahead and just snipped it there, and it had enough slack in it that I could actually reflare it and get the slack out of it and put it in where it needs to go. So we're going to do that. Yeah, so I'm just going to duplicate these lines out of brand new, and then we can just have brand new lines all the way up front. The exception probably being their rear, and who knows. We're on the track to just go ahead and replace everything. So.
Experience the 34th Annual NHRA U.S. Nationals, Thursday through Monday of Labor Day weekend at Indianapolis Raceway Park. The biggest drag race in the world. Save on and charge tickets at participating CarQuest Auto Parts stores.
So we're next day. We've got all the lines bent for the front brakes, the master cylinder, and yeah. And I decided to look at this rear line while I was at it. And well, it's rotted and rusted too. It might be okay internally and strength wise, but I don't want to risk it. So I'm just gonna, I got enough line. It's a pretty straight shot. I'm just gonna make a new line. So basically we'll have all new hard lines on this van. All new rubber lines. All new calipers, all new wheel cylinders, and I gotta cut this off because it's froze on there. So I pull this clip off. This is the one that goes from the hard line to the rear rubber line. So there's our little clip. And of course that's froze on there. Here's the old rubber line from the rear. That's why I didn't put the new one on yet. So I'm gonna take this one out. Use it as a template, clean all this up, put this aside. Yeah. So it didn't take a lot to get that out. I went ahead and cut it right there where you see this hammer head, just to anchor it, because if you don't, it'll flop to the side. This is how it would correctly lay. And that's where it went through one of the cross members, so I just snipped it there. And I could feed it back through fairly straight and then get the bend back in it if need be. And that'll be likely the case. So we'll add a little bit here, maybe a good 2 inches, and then cut off roughly an inch. That'll fit the section that goes into the rear. This goes, obviously, jumps over to the driver's side, kinks over to the cross member, and then goes up to the proportioning valve. One thing I did notice, another good reason to have taken this off was that needs to be a little longer, maybe about 5 inches, for it to fit onto the correct side of the proportioning valve that we're putting in. And we also have an old compression fitting right here. And I'm just not a big fan. I know sometimes they work, and technically they should work, but let's just get rid of it. Let's just get new. And look, I've got enough new here. Let's just make a brand new piece. And then we'll have brand new brakes, brand new vehicle. Here's the new line. I started here, gave it a little extra compared to this one, and I have split them apart here and followed everything here. Here's where this bend would come over to here and on down, and then this is where it becomes from here on extra. So I'm probably going to cut it here just to be safe, so in case I have to wrap it around and make a little bend on it, we'll be good. But I'm going to do another little calculation. But one thing I noticed when I was coming down about here, I made this little bend here. I know they don't look alike because it's the angle. It should actually sit about like that. Let's come down through here, and oh my gosh, look what's going on with this old line. There's a huge pit right here. It's my finger pointing at it. And then right here is a hole. And then when you turn it over, it's like delaminated. The way the rust will kind of chip away, that sort of thing. And we got another pit right here. So this line was bad to begin with. So total justification for doing this. I don't feel bad at all. So never underestimate a vehicle that has sat, just plain old set, for let's just say a decade. All right, everything is run. I have clipped everything that has a clip available to it. For instance, the one that goes to the passenger side, there's a clip on each side of the engine cradle. There's a little clip down here, and then for the rearmost line, there are a handful of clips along the frame rails and such as that. So everything is positioned right, and we even got these here in place just for so nothing moves. And that's these right here. This is where it'll go into your rubber brake line and into the caliper, okay? So these are just kind of loosely hanging in the holes on each side. So this side and that side over there, as well as the very back up in here. We have it protruding through there, so we know that our position is right. So we have 3 lines coming up. This one right here, the center one, is the driver's front. That's what we designated for that one. This one here is the passenger front, and it'll obviously need to be cut down some, but we'll make sure we're positioned right before we do that. And this one here is the one that goes all the way to the very back that we just bent a few minutes ago. I have a couple zip ties holding them where the lines roll together, so that we're not, if one does this and does that with it, we want to keep those together. But if one of them is doing this, we don't want to tie them together that way or start doing something, because we realize later we might need to make an adjustment and something hits in the wrong place down there, or it gets, you know, bound up with something else. So we just make sure, cover our bases, everything's coming up fluidly. Everything when it gets to about here bends, and that was according to what original lines I had, with the exception of the area where the old T-valve was and where you would normally have the disc brake proportioning valve down there on the frame. It's just going to run up here. That way stuff like, where's our little wire at? Yeah, this wire here will go to the proportioning valve for a brake light and stuff like that. And yeah, so I'm going to get the proportioning valve. We've been cleaning it out. I'm going to make sure it looks good since it's right here. And we're going to make sure that everything will route where we want it to route before we start, you know, our final cuts and our flares, our double flares on everything. All right, some of the action going on here right now has been cleaning up a lot of the old fittings, using new ones where we can. There's a lot of oddball fittings on these. These are the ones that go to the master cylinder. One's a little larger than the other one. It's just to give you reference as to which one goes where. But that makes it a little tedious when you're going to make new lines. You're trying to connect them into the right place. You see here, since these are the 2 master cylinder lines, one fitting is much smaller than the other one. This is one of the master cylinder lines, and this one there is. Notice the large one right here, okay? Well, when we go over here, the lines are identical in their shape, the tube portion, but this is the larger one. This will go in that one. That is for, let's see, I believe it is the rear. And here's one way we know that we checked that and it came out the way it's supposed to. One of these fittings here is larger, and it's the one on the left. So actually it is for the front. That's for the front disc brakes. Our fitting fell off here. We'll just slip it back on there. So that is for the fronts, okay? We'll have to flare it there and flare it here. That's why they fell off. This master cylinder will probably have to be changed. I think it's just an equal front and back. We'll have to get the one with the bias proportion on it. But this at least puts the fittings in the right ballpark, okay? So we have those ready for flaring, and the only thing it really leaves outside of that is everything else. So we'll have to get these. This is for the rear, and it has a very large fitting on it, and that's the one I was showing you down here in the proportioning valve that goes to the rear section. It's this one right here. The feed on it is this one directly above it. It's a small one, but it outlets into a large one. So once you do all these right and get them in the right position, double check, triple check after you've bent your lines, then you can go about flaring it and using a kit like this to get it all right. Now we've got the proportioning valve setting in here. We ran the 2 lines off the master cylinder. We made sure to avoid anything rigid like this bar here. We allowed it to bend around it and to go into this gap between the brake booster and the firewall and the starter relay, okay? So now it's just floating in there, and that's fine for right now. We just started with these 2. The one for the rear was laying here and had a fitting on it, and I just had to do the double flare. So I went ahead and did that and carefully bent it down, around, and in. So there's no kink or anything there. So we're in 3 spots. And what we're gonna have to do when we get these next 2 done is bring it up and use our original bolt and the hole and make a small bracket that has 2 holes that we can run the screws through and mounted that, but we want to bring it up and kind of back against the firewall, okay? Now that leaves these two lines right here as far as everything up in the firewall area. This green one's obviously too long. The silver one's next. Silver one's in a pretty good position. I can probably modify it a little bit just in shape and bring it in to this one, and we'll have to do a double flare there. And I'll take this green one and I might even cut it right about here and eliminate the rest of this, and I can bend it down and then we can do a flare with this fitting on it. So I've done everything up front. Leaves me this, the rear. Starting to get the hole. I need my fitting. Okay. Let's see. So this guy. And one thing we'll want to do when we get all of this double flared everywhere is open up the lines again at the proportioning valve and blow some brake fluid through it, and then blow right after that some air through it, because any of the little shavings that I acquired up there from doing all the double flaring, and then on this end, because you don't want to blow it back up in there, you want to continue to push it all out. So that will be the next move after I get this flared. But I probably won't do it tonight, that'll be later. But we just want to get all the hard lines ran and ready to go. I think yeah, that looks pretty good. There we go. Don't go too far. I've left this drive shaft down because I need to get new U-joints for it. I just left it loose. Just try to get a nice flat edge on it, so this will go down evenly. Shoot, it's going crooked. Dang it. That's what I hate about this stuff. You get it as plumb as you can and it still screws around on you. Yeah, it's all jacked up, so. But that's why I just leave myself not too much, but a little bit extra line. A lot better there. So far, it's almost flush. There we go. And it's pretty much ready to go. I will straighten that out just a hair. I'm gonna grab it by the fitting and just tilt it down. There we go. Alright, so we're good to go on the metal lines. Everything's new. I just got to build a bracket for that and then hook everything else up to those metal lines. Next episode of anything that we do is going to be part 2 of the suspension, all that stuff, the disc brake swap, all that. So we're doing the ball joints, the control arm bushings. I'll probably have to, the lower control arms, get all that serviced outward. And check out the link below for some cool stuff. T-shirts, decals, and got a couple posters on there. So until next time.
We hope you've enjoyed the preceding short feature.